Hi, Dr. Haikam.
Hello, hello.
Since you're here in the Hawk or?
Hello, Professor Ahmad.
Hello. Hello, Dr. Heike. Hello.
Yes, Dr. Amal, we are hearing you.
Suzanne.
I am not hearing anyone.
No voice. No voice. Just open the voice.
Hello.
We can
Good
hear
afternoon.
you. Hi, Dr.
Good
Suzanne.
afternoon.
I'm
Both of
not
you
hearing.
have no voice. Just
Still
put
no
the
voice?
voice on.
Dr. Amal, could you hear me? Okay.
Now it's fine.
Okay. We have to say that this session is recorded and also is broadcasting via the Facebook webpage of the Women in Science Without Borders, and I'm going to be your host for this closing session. So for any technical problem, you may just call my name and I will try to do my best to help you.
Thanks a lot,
Yep.
Dr. Shaheen.
Yep.
By the way, let me introduce Dr. Shaheen. She and Dr. Ahmed Khalili, who will be the moderator with me today, are the key behind this conference.
Yes, with pleasure.
Could you please share the Facebook links on chat? When we begin, could you please share the Facebook links? Dr. Shaheen.
Sorry, Dr. Amal.
Could you please share the links of the Facebook and our YouTube channel and our Facebook page? Could you please, because I couldn't share from the sources to the Zoom.
Okay.
The three sites, the Facebook page, the YouTube channel, and the live now.
Yes, we are live now on Facebook. So
Please share.
yes, I am going to find the link and share it with you in the chat in a moment.
And also share the YouTube link for the one who wants to follow us afterward.
We are live now on Facebook. So
Please share.
okay, I will.
There is echo. Again, there is echo.
Sorry. Yeah, because I just opened it on my computer. Sorry.
Hello, Dr. Munif is here. Dr. Munif.
Yes, for all the panelists and the attendees, the Facebook link is there. So our dear guests can share the link on their social media accounts. So we make sure that more people are going to join us and getting cues of this session.
Dr. Munif is with us, Dr. Shaheen.
Yes,
Dr.
he is.
Munif.
I can see Dr. Munif Zobi. He's here. I don't know if he can hear us.
Dr. Munif, hello.
Salamat, I can hear you. I can see
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
I can hear you.
Great.
Good
Great.
afternoon.
Welcome. Yeah, good afternoon. Welcome. Yeah. Okay. The missing now is Dr. Karim Hassan. He will join us. Anyway, we have 5 minutes.
Jointly access. Dr. Shaheen. Prof. Heike is asking for access. Could you
Access
resend?
to the,
Could you resend her the invitation, please?
Sure, but I can see her name in the panelists. Okay, I will.
Oh, yeah, I can see it as well.
Okay, then is it, do I need to send her again, or is it okay?
Sorry,
No.
Dr. Heike, can you hear us or not, please?
We have still time.
Yes.
Yeah, we have about a couple of minutes.
No, let it 5 minutes, because the people, you understand, the separate sessions is a problem, because you close the session and enter the email now again, and then enter the Zoom.
Yeah, even they need like 2 minutes to have a cup of coffee.
Oh.
All right, so the boss.
Some people like me,
boss-
it's hard for them, the technology, a little bit hard.
Dr. Amal, the boss has said 5 minutes, then there are 5 minutes.
Okay, thanks. 5 minutes because of the people like me.
You are perfect one.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. This is
I'm
Pat.
anti-technology. I am anti-technology. I don't like technology.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Mr. Kareem.
Mr. Kareem.
The session, Mr. Kareem, is on Facebook. And
Yes.
for all attendees, if you want to share it on your Facebook pages, it's okay.
Yes, I think
For more followers and likes.
Dr. Heike is online now with us.
Can you hear me?
There is an echo, Dr. Heike.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes. So assume to have 5 speakers in this session. Am I correct, Dr. Amal? Yeah.
Yes, 5 speakers, and now all of them here.
All of them
Inshallah.
available. Okay, great.
Inshallah. Have you prepared the videos afterward?
Yeah, they are ready. They are ready.
Yes, okay.
Everything will be fine, inshallah.
Inshallah. Just to let some more people to interested soon. But you know, Dr. Ahmed, your system to let every session is separate is very nice, really. But the problem lays in the technology and the internet speed and so on. But if everything is okay, it's better than one link for all the day.
We expected this, Doctor, because as you said, to leave a session and join another one, it requires time for the people to set up a new session. That's why, and sometimes people in the current session need more time to explain, especially the plenaries are very, very fruitful and informative, and people have lots of questions, and we have very prestigious guests, so it's like a chance to catching them, because if they are going to miss this chance, then there will be there's difficult to find them again and talk to them. So that's why it's yeah, we consider all these when we set up the
separate sessions is much better.
Yeah.
Dr. Amal, I have a question. How much time do we have for our presentations?
Everyone 15 minutes, but the questions and discussions at the end. So that your lecture 15 minutes. Discussions at the end, inshallah. Dr. Ahmed, 2 minutes and then start, please.
Okay, doctor.
Okay, we can start. It's 3:05.
All right. Dear all, I would like to welcome you to the closing session and hope you have had a good time with us during this 3 days international forum. This is Dr. Ahmed Al Khalil from the University of The Hague, and I will be co-moderate this session with Dr. Amal Amin, the founding chair for the World Forum for Women in Science Without Borders. Um, I just want to remind you that this session is recorded and it is live on Facebook, and the link for the Facebook is shared in the chat box. So, for today's session, the first speaker is Prof. Heike Wendet, and her speech title is Barriers to Access Higher Education for Displaced Minorities, the case study of female Yazidi students in Iraq. Prof. Wendet is the deputy head of the institution or of the Institute for Education Research and Teacher Education and University of Graz. Prof. Wendet has more than 6 years of lecturing at universities in Iraq and coordinates since 2015, leads a higher education partnership between the universities of Mosul, Dortmund, and Graz, aiming to strengthen academic reconstruction and consultation at Mosul University and the region. As a part of her civic engagement, she co-heads a small NGO supporting and empowering minority students in Iraq in their educational aspiration. So, Prof. Wendet, it is your time to present your speech. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed, for the very kind introduction. My name is Heike Wendt. For about 2 years, I'm professor for education research at Graz University, but for the last 6 years, I've been, as Dr. Ahmed said, I've been working at different universities in Iraq and also had the pleasure to engage and get to know and work with a number of Yazidi students. And I thought this would be a nice occasion to talk here today about my related research, which of course I've done in partnership with a number of organizations and colleagues, which I will acknowledge at the end of my presentations. I would like to start my talk today with talking a little bit about access in higher education and barriers and what we can learn from literature about this. And then I would like to take the opportunity today to talk about Yazidi minority students in Iraq, and then in light of this conference also to highlight the situation of female Yazidi students. And here on my starting slide, you already see a quote as part of the interviews I took, which is a quote from one of the female Yazidi students I've been having the privilege to get to know over the last 6 years, who's one of the examples here of the high educational aspirations these young female academics are having in Iraq, despite their difficult living situations. For those who are not familiar with the Iraqi context, let me just give you some brief facts about which we've also learned throughout this conference. As from August 2018, the terrorist groups known as Daesh and ISIS invaded and occupied parts of Iraq and launched a genocidal campaign against ethno-religious minorities in Iraq, which are many more than just the cases I'm looking at today. For the Yazidi minority, I'll take a special look in my presentation today. It is the case that almost all members of the Yazidi minority in Iraq, which are making up to 500,000 people, depending on whose estimation we wish to trust here, only almost all of them have been displaced as part of these terrorist attacks, and only few being able to return to their homes in the last years. Displacements and war-related trauma also affected at large educational opportunities of these young people. And we've already seen quite a number of research related to access and barriers when it comes to students of members from these minorities, but we've not seen as much as people dealing and covering and documenting the situation of students from minority groups when it comes to higher education. As a normative frame, I think we can all agree on that questions of access to education are questions which are related to basic human rights. Of course, here we can argue that access to education is a fundamental human right, which is not just related to basic education, but also needs to be granted when it comes to higher education. And when we look at this normative focus, in this frame, then this relates, and we should take special attentions to questions of non-discrimination in terms of access resulting from legal, administrative barriers, financial obstacles, discrimination, and so forth. However, looking at the situation here just from a human rights perspective might be a little bit difficult, because the human rights frame, as Baita put it, guarantees that higher education should be accessible. But especially in the Iraqi case, with Mosul University not being available because it was occupied by Daesh, also here the question of human rights becomes a little bit more difficult, with universities also being taken over for a couple of years. So let's look at a little bit of more arguments for equal access to higher education when we consider them participation and access in higher education and an investment into conflict stabilization, peacemaking, and development in certain types of contexts. There's a vast number of literature in that regard, that politically we consider the reinforcement of higher education institution as also the reinforcements of legitimacy of governmental actors. Participation in higher education may be a reason for young people being prevented from being recruited into armed conflict, and involvement may reduce the conflict potential, as it will maybe, if equal access is granted, will be reduce potential conflict factors. We can also look at economical benefits, excuse me, economical and social benefits in that regard, as terms of integration into the labor market, especially for displaced communities, providing the basis for building livelihoods and becoming self-reliant. And also socially, there are a number of benefits which can be named when it comes to questions of access to higher education, such as excuse me, such as enhanced appreciation of knowledge, reduced marginalization, but also in terms of empowerment. However, some scholars have been critically arguing in that regard that there's also a threat in that regard, that maybe situations that delays in participation in education, delays participation in the worlds of adults and lengthen childhood dependence if dreams and wishes and aspiration with regards of education cannot be held. When we look, why is this a problem? To not just look at questions whether there's a legal framework provided. When we look through the lenses of different social justice theories, there are various factors we need to pay attention to when looking at access and enrollments, drawing on roles and this concept of understanding justice and fairness. We need to look at differences in enrollment patterns on the basis of social and economic inequalities, and also on the question of recognition and admission policies. The work of Young has been reminding us that we also need to look at aspects of discrimination and social structures and institutions and how they deal with group memberships. The work here of Nancy Fraser has been reminding us that issues of access to higher education needs to be looked at as through the perspective of redistribution, affirmative action policies, and also in terms of representations. And maybe from a capability approach, we also need to acknowledge that just looking at statistical factors may be limiting our lenses and understanding and judging what is just in that regard, but that we need to be critically evaluating the condition and also the conversion factors and the capacities young people have to make use of resources they may or not have to take active part in higher education. So looking at what concrete barriers could be, there are a number of condition and conversion factors which are especially present for young people which are displaced also in the Iraqi context. Geographic location, lack of security plays a role, poor living conditions, interrupted education cycles, low quality of students, and maybe also a different judgment of opportunity cost of spending years out of employment and participating in higher education. And also there it is, and also another set of factors might be important to look at: practices of recognition, redistribution, and representation at higher education institutions. So the focus of our studies, which I would show you some data here today, was that we first of all tried to document some enrollment patterns at universities over the last years, document family and living situation, and also to understand barriers and trajectories for Yazidi minority students in Iraq. In order to understand this, I would like to just give you a brief context here. I know you cannot well read the map, but there are some things important you will need to know to follow the line of arguments here. So you see here in this map, Sinjar region, from which the majority of Yazidi population in 2014 got displaced, and they moved to Kurdistan regions and various places. Before, Mosul University, being located here, was the university which was catering for most young people coming from this region, with Mosul also being occupied. Mosul University was closed in Mosul from 2014 to 2018. Moving to Kurdistan region meant for many young people that they had to make a tradition from one Iraqi education system to another, and these education systems differ in terms of delivery, structure, language, and admission policy. Mosul University between 2015 and 2018 offered undergraduate courses at various locations in Kurdistan region for up to 14,000 students. Kurdish universities accepted some students as guest students. And also what is important to know here, schools existed for both education systems, but students had to choose in terms to what type of school they would want to enroll. As offered, decisions were up onto parents, language, and with the decision, there was also the transition decision being made in that regard. And a transition year, special schools was offered until 2019, so that students who wanted to access the higher education system in Kurdistan could do that by adding another education year. My study design here consists of 3 parts. It's a mixed method design. We conducted a survey on Yazidi students in 2019, in which more than 600 students participated, which is about 15% of the estimated total population of Yazidi students in Iraq. I conducted, in addition, focus groups with 35 students from various universities. I had the privilege to follow over 5 years over the study course, and I took a number of expert interviews and university with students and university representatives. So let me come to some first results here. So these are numbers of total student numbers of 2 main university caterings for the Yazidi minority students in Iraq, as I got from the international office from both universities. And I got numbers on students, Yazidi students, from the student representatives of the Yazidi students at the universities. And here you can see that out of the almost 40,000 students at Mosul universities in 2009, 1,130 were of Yazidi minority. This is about 2.8% of the total population of Mosul University, considering the representation of the Yazidi minority in the population in the region before Daesh, then equal representation in this regard would have meant 16%. Here, so we see clear underrepresentation. Today in the region of Duhok, Yazidi minority makes up to 1/5 to 1/4 of the populations. Also here at University of Duhok, we see underrepresentation in that regard. And you see here that the share of that there's gender parity almost achieved at Mosul University between female and male students, but not so for the Iraqi, but not so for the Yazidi students. Here, only 1 out of 4 students is a female at Mosul University. So Yazidi students, and especially female Yazidi students, are underrepresented at the university. What are the reasons? Just here maybe for you to read up in the following. Here's one of the reasons I got from an interview here. So you can see this is a case of a student that dropped out, who said after the temporary campuses in Kurdistan were closed, she did not have the financial means, and she also had security concerns and could not continue her studies in Mosul, and therefore dropped out of university in that regard. What are the family situations here? Just from the survey we took, we learned that in 2019, more than half of the students are living, have families living in camps. 1/4 has family that already returned to Sinjar, and only 1 out of 4 students has a main male provider that can support the study financially. Students live in very different conditions at the 2 universities. When they study at Mosul University, most of them have to live on rent, and that means that they need up to 350 American dollars to finance their studies in that regard, given that most families have no income. This is a great burden on students in that regard. So here, just for you to follow up and read what this means for individual student, here a case for a student that studies at Zaho University that lives in a camp, who's saying that for her just to reach university, she will need about $50 per month. And this is a burden for her family in that regard. Another barrier which came apparent in the interviews I took is that students, due to the displacement and also the traumas they're related, they, of course, their final school exams, they did not reach the results they wanted. This is the case you can see
Sorry,
here.
Dr. Heike,
Students got
couple of minutes
displaced
to go.
several times over the course, and also being alone and being a minority at the university was a barrier for them to study.
Dr. Heike, couple of minutes to go. Okay.
Also, the prolongment of educational studies, especially something which female students pointed out as being a challenge for them, as they had to step back because most families could only afford one student from the family to study.
Sorry,
So
Dr. Heike,
to conclude
Dr.
here,
Heike.
so from the survey, we asked students what are the factors and barriers which you are most affected in with your studies. You can see here almost all students reported finances.
Dr. Heike, only 1 minute, please.
Mosul University is an issue. Family and psychological problems for up to 4 out of 10 students is an issue, but also aspects in how they feel treated at the university, and also discrimination are study obstacles which are reporting students from these minorities. So to conclude here, underrepresentation of Yazidi and especially female Yazidi students is clearly visible at universities in Iraq, and it's human rights issues which will also have long-term consequences. Barriers exist in terms of availability and accessibilities, and higher education cannot just argue that this is a structural problem, but also I think there are various ways which could be done at the universities for themselves, such as at least starting having a monitoring system and starting to take some affirmative action measures. Now, thank you very much for listening to me. I'll just give credits to all the people who've been involved in this study, and thank you very much for listening. And and contact me if you would like to know more and discuss more.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Heike, for your nice presentation. Now we are moving to the next speaker, who is Mr. Karim Hassan. Mr. Hassan is the Executive Director of United Nations ESQA Technology Center for Development in Jordan. And he is going to deliver a talk about driving innovation and entrepreneurship in the Arab region. Mr. Hassan has initiated and led more than 60 projects in 20 countries worldwide, including knowledge production, capacity building, participatory innovation, and appropriate technology implementation, in addition to founding and leading 4 enterprises in the fields of water, agriculture, sustainable architecture, and waste recycling. Mr. Hassan, it is your time to present your talk, please.
Thanks a lot, Ahmed, for the introduction, and many thanks to all the people who participated in this interesting event. I really enjoyed the whole event since 2 days, and the speakers and their topics that they were discussing. So thanks a lot for all the organizers of this event, and many thanks to all the followers and attendees across the globe. So I'd like to share with you my screen and presentation. Yes. Yeah, here, as Ahmed mentioned, I'll present to you the driving innovation and entrepreneurship in the Arab region presentation. So, as many of you knows very well that we are facing lots of challenges in the field of science, technology, and innovation, or STI, in the Arab region. One of them is the sectoral thinking and overlapping, where it's not really well connected and performing very well in the region in terms of collaboration. With minimal cooperation and minimal integration and synergies, the sector is really suffering. Second of all, the inactive and dependent community, where the people, most of young people specifically, and also lots of women in the region are inactive as they are depending just on the government or the national institutions or the bigger institutions or organizations to lead the science and technology and innovation in the region. In addition to a lack of skills and abilities in some countries or in some regions or in some local communities, due to also the shortage of published knowledge in Arabic or local languages. In addition to, in some countries and some cases, there is a huge gap and weak also monitoring and evaluation schemes. In addition to the deficiency of the support cycle from the community and also from governments. And the most common problem or the challenge that faces especially the least developing countries in the region, the insufficient and inefficient also financial management. In addition also, or last but not least, and not everything I mentioned, it's just a kind of the outline of the main problems. The improper legal frameworks and supportive regulatory frameworks as well. So these challenges we are facing for a long time, and we are still facing, and for sure we will be facing also in the near future. So there is a need for a new strategy for the new decade. Lots of achievements and lots of activities have been done in the previous decades. But this decade, it's very special with a global pandemic that hindered us also in our development. And to overcome all of these challenges and to have a kind of a new scientific Arab Spring in the region, we need to ask ourselves a question. Do we need to reinvent the wheel in the region? The wheel of science, technology, and innovation and entrepreneurship in the region? Actually, no, we shouldn't reinvent the wheel. We have already achieved lots of things in the previous decades. Lots of amazing case studies in the region, and lots of progress had been done by governments or by communities or organizations or startups or innovators or research facilities or institutions. Lots of amazing examples. And in this forum also we heard lots of good examples and case studies that we can follow. However, these cases needed to be generalized and needed to be scaled up regionally in a more professional and inclusive way. So instead of reinventing the wheel, we're just willing to push it, to keep it moving forward, and to have a specific and clear identification of the parts of this wheel. For instance, what we can do now to accelerate the development of science and technology and innovation and entrepreneurship in the region, we can have a technology and innovation wheel, which consists of 4 main pillars that shape this wheel. First of all, promoting open applied knowledge. There is a huge gap in the knowledge, as I mentioned in the previous slide, that there is a need for a well-structured and well-disseminated applied knowledge in the fields of technology. I'll come back to that in details later. And then building the capacities or empowering and emboldening the local technological and scientific capacities in the region based on the available applied knowledge. And then having people build their capacities, we need to encourage the implementation of appropriate and local or indigenous technologies. And last but not least is advocating for local and regional enabling environments. So let me explain these pillars to all of you. First of all, like for the applied knowledge, there is a huge regional need for building open source knowledge platforms that consist of several toolboxes and knowledge boxes that represent specific technology topics. And for instance, agriculture-related technologies or wash technologies, water sanitation and hygiene, frontier technologies or green technologies in general, health technologies and whatever. And these technologies needed to be explained and elaborated. All the established technologies in the region and appropriate technologies in the region that showed and proved their capabilities to be localized. In addition to the applied research and innovation knowledge, we need to have a network to understand the research, the current research that is going on in the region and how to improve this research and what are the innovation gaps. In addition to having clear and applied knowledge for how to establish technology-driven projects and how to manage these projects also. In addition to understanding and knowing the financial resources and how to fundraise to establish your research or to scale your innovation or whatsoever. In addition to how to do partnerships and social inclusion, which is super important to include the community and have inclusive innovation. And in addition to understanding and transferring the knowledge of policies and how to build up practical policies, enabling policies that could speed up the process of initiating and scaling new technologies. In addition to having also tools for monitoring and evaluation, in addition to communication and outreach materials to reach out the huge mass in the region. So we need toolboxes in all of these regions. We need knowledge, clear knowledge, advanced knowledge, and also indigenous knowledge that is coming up from the region as well. And afterward, having these platforms of knowledge and base of knowledge, we need to build the capacities of local stakeholders to be able to design and develop, implement and utilize and upscale technologies and innovation in the Arab countries. And these trainings could be like nowadays, we are aiming to shift everything to be online. So it could be online or offline or even on blended learning formats. And these trainings should target 4 main groups who are responsible for the initiation and running and scaling innovation and entrepreneurship, like researchers and innovators, entrepreneurs, the community of practice and implementation of these technologies, and also policymakers. It's very important to blend and combine the two approaches, the top-down approach, like involving people who are at the high-level management or policymakers, and also improving the bottom-up approach where we are building the capacities of local communities to be able to design these technologies and scale them up. And having a huge group of people who build their capacities on the ground, we can support them for the practical implementation of technologies. And for the technology, there are several steps of transfer from idea to prototype to product to scale. The first step, which is from idea to prototype, how to support people and innovators and young people, and especially women also as well, to be able to do the research and development and identify the local priorities to achieve SDGs, and how to develop ideation programs and build prototypes of appropriate solutions. This is really the first step and needs lots of support. The second step, which is converting prototypes to products, and how to match make the valid prototypes and research with the industrial enablers and investors to develop these professional solutions. And having these professional solutions ready, they can turn from a product to market by enhancing entrepreneurship and having a big mass of technology startups, by assisting the innovators to start up their own ventures and to introduce their professional products to the local market, and building a community of Arab tech startups and connecting this community together. And the final step of the technology transfer is from the local market to the regional and global scale. How to promote with partner institutions the successful technologies outside the local markets to the regional scale. So having these steps done and following up on each of these steps, it's not an easy task, but it's not impossible at all. And in order to do that and to facilitate the entire process, we need to enhance our enabling environment, which is last but not least pillar here in our technology and innovation week, where we should bring up the knowledge and innovation communities together on the national and also regional scales to support the technology transfer and implementation process on the local and regional levels. So the knowledge and innovation communities, they could consist of 8 elements or 8 categories of stakeholders. Like for instance, research and innovation facilities. We should have a network of all of these guys together on the regional and also international levels. The technology transfer offices and IP offices, along with business incubators and financial supporters and private sector and public sector, in addition to all the supporting bodies and NGOs, along with the policies and strategies and legalizations available on the local, regional, and international levels. So all of these organizations and entities and bodies and stakeholders, they should sit together, find out some synergies. There is lots of pathways we need to follow on, from research to innovation to technology transfer to business, and also to scale afterward. So working.
Sorry, Karim, couple of minutes.
This is a final slide.
It's all right. Thank you.
So working all of that together will help the environment and will help researchers, will help entrepreneurs, will help innovators to tackle the local challenges and problems and turn them to successful and scalable solutions. So this was the explanation of the technology and innovation wheel with all of its 4 pillars. It could be a new strategy for the entire region, and also maybe it could be scaled up for the worldwide. Thank you very much for listening, and looking forward to see you next year.
Thank you so much, Mr. Karim, for your very informative presentation. And now we'll move to the next speaker, who is Ms. Suzanne Arif. Ms. Arif is the president of Women Empowerment Organization, and her today's speech title is "The Role of Women's Organizations in Achieving the Women's Agenda of Peace and Security, Opportunities and Challenges." Ms. Arif is a human rights activist since 2012. She has been playing a leading role to ensure a robust partnership between CSOs and both governments of Iraq and Kurdistan region in developing the Iraqi National Action Plan 1325. Suzanne is coordinating a large alliance of civil society, alliance to support the implementation of the UNITUR, which included 40 NGOs across Iraq to support the development of Iraqi's national plan and its implementation. Please, Ms. Arif, it is your time to deliver your speech. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm really very glad to take part in this very interesting word form for women in science. Thank you for giving me the chance to be here and to present the role of women organizations in the achieving the women's peace security. But please allow me, since this event, this forum is taking place on the International Women's Day, just to celebrate and to wish a happy Women's Day to the strong, intelligent, and talented women in the world. Women of the world deserve an equal future, free from violence and discrimination, a future which enjoys social justice, equal opportunities, gender equality, justice, and peace. So happy Women's Days. Today, I would like to give an introduction about the UN Security Council Resolution 1325, and also about the role of women organizations, civil society organization in achieving peace, and also about their activities of campaigns and awareness raising, and also talking about the opportunities to our work, and also about challenges and recommendations. So the UN Security Council Resolution 1325, the United Nations resolution that adopted in 2000, that it is a paradigmic shift in the treatment of the issue of women by the United Nations and international community. So with this resolution, we aim to look at women as a victim, only as a victim, but looking at a woman as actor, as active actor, as a peace builder, as a decision maker. So this is how this resolution, it makes a different treatment on women issue. And this is how the civil society and women organization considered this resolution as important tool in their hand to make the changes and how to reflect the content of this resolution on the local ground, how women to have an active and meaningful participation in all the aspects of life, in decision making, and also in the community, in their family. So this is how the women organization in Iraq and in Kurdistan have developed work on the agenda of women, peace, and security by establishing the Alliance of Women, Peace, and Security that established since 2012. But for my career, no, it started already in '98. So what's the Alliance 1325? The Alliance of Women, Peace, and Security was established in April 2012, which includes more than 35, it reached 40 women and civil society organization. So we already start to work on this resolution after 12 years of the adoption of this resolution. The Iraqi National Action Plan 1325 that came out by the effort of the women organization, civil society organization, to translate the content of the resolution 1325 in a national plan to respond to the needs of women, especially on the pillar of participation, protection, prevention. And this is especially for women participation in general, and also displaced person and survivor of violence in particular. So this is a big achievement of women organization that Iraq has to be proud about about the women organization and civil society, because they, with the achievement, with the adoption of the National Action Plan in Iraq in 2014, Iraq became the first country in the MENA region adopting this National Action Plan for Women, Peace, Security agenda. So what is the activities and especially the campaigns and awareness raising by the civil society? So campaigns on awareness and education about Security Council resolution on women, peace, security, which is the resolution 1325, and there is other resolution which it's complementary for this resolution. It's more than 9 other resolutions that came after the resolution 1325. Advocacy and community mobilization campaigns. So this is how civil society organization was able to launch several campaigns, including calling for the adoption of the anti-domestic violence and other campaigns on proposed amendment to the personal status law, especially on the marriage of children, marriage of girls that raised after the intervention of ISIS. So this is how the civil society women organization advocate to raise the marriage age to 18 and also to stop the marriage outside the court. Campaigns and also the campaign to stop the Ja'fari law that it is, of course, it is, which there was a huge abuse for women's rights. Campaigns on awareness and education about Security Council resolution on women, peace, security, campaigns for the implementation of the National Action Plan and specific strategies for women. So the campaigns, it is not only that we can achieve peace and reflecting the content of resolution by having this National Action Plan. The most important, it is the implementation, the allocation of resources, of budget, of human resource. So this is how the civil society women organization continue their advocacy on the implementation of the first National Action Plan from 2014 till 2018. And including also the other strategy for the advancement of women and strategy against violence against women, equality, important to the above, it is to work to implement numerous programs and projects with the support of United Nations agency and international organization operating in Iraq and also outside Iraq. In regard to advocacy and community mobilization campaigns, here the emphasis is on building the capacity of women leaders, because the core of the resolution is on women leadership, on women participation in peace building, in peace agreement, and also in decision centers, also in working in security sectors. So programs and projects to provide direct support and assistance to displaced women and how to build the skill of women inside camps, how to become a leader, how to represent the other women inside the camp, inside their communities, in addition to improving service by building the capacity of service providers from the government, from the other NGOs. Women's organization and movement are also working to bridge the gaps between the goal of the resolution and the local procedure available and on the ground, because we can see some kind of contradictivity between the women peace security agenda and the discriminative laws that we have, and also the lack of programs or lack of budget for the implementation. So this is how the civil society is trying how to bridge between the gaps and the goal of the resolution. The reality shows that there is a big gap between the ambition of our commitments and actual political and financial support. Currently, there have been no outstanding improvements for women on the ground, especially in response to the victims needed to access to justice. And when we mentioning to victims, so mainly we are talking about the victims from the conflict. So we cannot see any kind of access to justice. And this is how it affects even on social cohesion and reconciliation. It is obvious that the development of national plans alone does not guarantee achieving peace and security. What is needed is the availability of effective accountability mechanism and budget available for effective implementation. Although there's a great deal or rhetorical support for women, peace and security funding for the programs is still very low. So there is a lot of speech, but in reality, there is no that will to support women, peace, security agenda. Opportunities to work on the agenda of women, peace and security. So what kind of opportunities we have? Resolution 1325 is an international and binding resolution that has become a powerful tool in the hand of civil society. This is how we felt we are strong when we have a very strong tool advocating and strengthening our position. To improve the locality of the approach to working on the women's agenda of peace and security. So how to localize the content of this resolution. To give women the opportunity to design, formulate, and implement programs. To cooperate, coordinate, and develop participatory work between civil society organizations and government institutions on the women's peace and security agenda. So this is how the civil society women organization were able to build a strong partnership with different sectors, the government, also parliament. So this is how to have a participatory process working on women peace security agenda. To secure the presence of women networks at the local, regional, and international level and highlighting women peacemakers. This is really important for us. Today, when I'm talking here, it's a great opportunity for us and also to amplify our voice on national level, international, regional level. So this is really important for us to amplify our voice and to have influence. National plans are an important tool that help to match national strategies, policies, and action with international women's rights mechanisms such as CEDAW, Sustainable Development Goals, and the Beijing Declaration. So this is our responsibility, how to match all these together under the same umbrella of women, peace, security. The challenges in implementing women peace and security agenda. So this is, you can see, we have a long list of the challenges. The lack of budget and resource to implement national action plans, as the lack of educate allocation of resource is one of the most serious obstacles. The fragility of political will and formal engagement with women issues, legislation reform initiative remain without effect. The discriminatory laws that prevent full equality in the affordability of basic rights and services during and after conflict still exist. Example, failure to pass the law of combating domestic violence law. We know that this law, it is in parliament like since 4 or 5 years. And still we cannot have this law. And still we have all the discriminative law, and we have the domestic violence. The lack of effective judiciary prosecution of the perpetrators of sexual abuse, insufficiency of human rights mechanism in subjecting member state to account for the lack of its commitment related to the women's agenda for peace and security. Women political participation, it is still ineffective, and the use of women's quota mechanism is for the benefit of the parties themselves. So still we couldn't find that advantage of the quota system, because the party using the quota for their interest, and this is why we cannot see the real participation of
Suzanne,
women.
a couple of minutes, okay?
Okay, I will finish with a
All right.
couple of minutes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, limited power and participation of women in the government and utilizing of quota in favor of the political parties. The impact of COVID-19 on the work of civil society organizations, especially service provision and advocacy activities. Recommendation: the Women, Peace and the National Action Plan should be seen as a central to the recovery and rebuilding of Iraq, especially we are now in recovery stage. So this is why it is important to be seen as a central. The active participation of women in the executive, legislative, and judicial authorities. A localized and inclusive approach to ensure people feel part of this mission. To give women the opportunity to design, formulate, and implement programs, budget allocation, and accountability mechanism for the National Action Plan 1325. Thank you for listening, and I am available for any question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Suzanne Arif. Your participation is highly appreciated. Thank you so much. Right. So the next speaker is Dr. Manif Zaubai. Dr. Zaubai is the Science Advisor, Interaction Council, and founding Director, World Sustainability Forum, WSF, and his speech title is Science for Humanity, Issues Pertaining to Women and Science, and some champions of science in some developing countries and the world. Dr. Zobi has been active in global sustainable development, particularly through science, technology, and innovation for around 30 years. He serves as the science advisor to the Interaction Council, which is an independent international organization that mobilize the experience of a group of former heads of state and statesmen for all over the world. He has published over 60 papers and edited and co-edited 20 books on topics such as higher education, the environment, as well as transformational technologies. Dr. It is your time to start. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay? And
Yes.
can you see my
Yes,
slides?
of course. Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good. I'm pleased to be with you this afternoon within days of celebrating the World Women's Day to talk about science and technology and the role of women in particular, and the role of champions of science and technology in socioeconomic development. The title of my presentation is slightly different than that mentioned in the program of this event. I was actually trying to cut it short, hopefully to get the message across concerning a number of issues related to socioeconomic development, sustainable development, and the role of women in such an enterprise. Right. Okay. So our world today in 2021 is a world very much plagued by this ongoing pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, that has took the world by storm and resulted in a number of unilateral actions by countries and organizations, as well as
just for your attention, please.
Okay, I think that's okay.
All right, all right.
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay then.
So the 2015 Sustainable Development Agenda, although a number of success stories have been achieved prior to the current pandemic, however, I think now is the time, and over the next few weeks indeed, we will be in a situation whereby we have to revisit the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and remeasure our success in achieving those targets, those goals that we have been trying very hard to achieve since 2015. And that is, of course, owing to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, of the Sustainable Development Goals, of course, Sustainable Development Goal number 5 talks about gender equality and asserts that gender equality is not only a fundamental human right, but a necessary foundation for a peaceful, prosperous, and a sustainable world. And although there has been progress over the last few decades in achieving this goal, with more girls going to school, fewer girls being forced out of school and into marriage, with more women serving in parliament and positions of leadership around the world, and the laws, some laws in some countries being reformed to advance gender equality. Now, a champion of science and technology that has contributed to developing the Sustainable Development Goals was Mrs. Bokova, the former Director General of UNESCO, who, when the Sustainable Development Agenda was drafted, fought really hard to introduce elements of STI, science, technology, and innovation, into the fabric of the Sustainable Development Agenda. Because science, technology, and innovation as a tool is a cross-cutting tool to achieve the various SDGs. And unlike the former Millennium Development Goals, for example, adopted more than 20 years ago, the SDGs do have a role for science, technology, and innovation to achieve the goals. With previous international agendas, science, technology, scientists, technologists, and innovators were struggling to identify a role for themselves in terms of what they could do to help achieve the set agendas. So therefore, when we're talking about science, I think it's the human being's collective responsibility to try and achieve sustainable development. This is the cover of the very famous journal Nature some years ago that talks about interdisciplinarity in the approach. It mentions men and women as championing the cause of science, technology, and innovation. Indeed, the responsibility for achieving the sustainable development goals essentially falls on the shoulders of the international community of scientists. Although many of the decisions affecting the sector of STI, the ecosystem of STI, are taken in political circles. This is one of the difficulties that we face in addressing the issue of sustainable development through science, technology, and innovation. Indeed, the stakeholders within the STI ecosystem are many. Of course, there are the scientists themselves, there are the administrators, the financial resources providers, the ministers of finance, and so on and so forth, the politicians who provide patronage for science, technology, and innovation. The whole ecosystem is really part of the global or the national ecosystem of development. And this is the proposal that I have used and many others in explaining how the various stakeholders fit into national STI ecosystems. And when I say stakeholders, I'm talking about men and women. And this is something that I and a friend proposed many years ago to better understand the hierarchy of the STI human resource pyramid for development. We have champions who are right at the top of the pyramid. Now, in terms of female champions of STI in the developing world or the world, I'm sure you and I can identify many. But I think we need more female champions of STI in Arab, Islamic, and developing countries in general. Advisors, STI advisors, as far as I know, there are no female STI advisors to governments within the developing world. There are a number of female popularizers of science and technology in the developing world, planners, managers, and quite a few female educators. The teaching society, teachers in the majority of developing countries is made up of female teachers, which is a good thing. And I think that a concept or a phenomenon that needs to be developed further so that we have even more science female teachers, as well as more female practitioners. And this is my point again, considering the gap that we have between scientists and politicians. The STI community has a problem in terms of communicating its science with the political decision makers in government, in parliament, and in society. I've talked about this before often, and I know many countries are trying to bridge this divide between politicians or decision makers and scientists. I think essentially the problem here, and this is the first stumbling block in the approach that I am talking about, is that the relationship between scientists and politicians tend to be difficult. there is a divide, if you like, between politicians and scientists, because very few politicians understand the limitations of science. The fact that scientists sometimes work in a lab under certain conditions with certain time constraints or budgetary constraints, or behind their laptops trying to develop apps or algorithms. So there is a difficulty there. And there's also a difficulty in terms of scientists appreciating the difficulties that politicians have in terms of securing budgets, in terms of justifying decisions to the public, and in terms of really providing patronage for science, technology, and innovation. And I can refer here very quickly to a recent decision by the newly elected American President Biden. One of the first decisions of President-elect or President Biden was to appoint a science advisor for the government, responsible not only for the advisory mechanism of the US government, but also for the Office of Science and Technology within the US government, which shows the importance that politicians attach or should attach to science-based advice. Because science, as I said, and as I started off as saying, science is the key to achieving socio-economic development, and science is too important to be left to politicians, to scientists alone. It's a joint venture, if you like, between scientists and politicians. Now, this statement came from a lady politician who was of the opinion that there should be a divide between scientists and politicians. Because, and I think we all disagree with this, because science is too important to be left to scientists alone or to politicians alone. Because science, at the end of the day, is the engine of prosperity. And nowadays, it's not only the engine of prosperity, but the engine of health security. Without science, no company in the world would have been able to develop the vaccine for the COVID-19 virus, or develop the necessary cure or medicine in the pipeline right now for the people who are infected with the virus. Science has proven again its capacity to address real life problems. Imagine our world today with millions of COVID-19 cases, yet without a vaccine in sight. Things would have been really different. A couple of quantitative slides to tell you about the problem of women in the science, technology, and innovation society, or the lack of female participants therein. According to the UNESCO Institute of Statistics, less than 30% of the world's researchers are women. The data available on the UIS website suggests that these women work in public, private, or academic sectors, and mentions their fields of research. But to truly reduce the gender gap, we must go beyond the hard numbers and identify the qualitative factors that deter women from pursuing careers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I would add medicine to that as well, given the current state of affairs in the world with the COVID-19. Academies of sciences also, the percentage of women in science academies around the world, according to the IAP report of 2016, published by the Inter-Academy Panel, was around 12%. I think the percentage now has gone up to maybe 15 or even 17%. Now, the other problem in terms of the role of women in the scientific enterprise, I feel that there's a lack of appreciation of diversity. The inclusion of female scientists in research science would really open up the research to new ideas and to bright ideas, and would result in the research being more creative, more flexible, more robust, and eventually more successful. However,
sorry, Doctor, a couple of minutes, okay?
Okay, I need about 3 minutes. I should be done.
Okay.
All right, thank you. The problem really lies in administration, not only in the developing world, but in the developed world as well. The administration of science takes a sizable chunk of research time and is politically flavored. And I think this does not really fit in well with the female scientists who are dedicated to research. Administration often takes too much time from top research scientists who are keen to focus on the research rather than on other matters. And there is also the conception that, the wrong conception, of course, that women have less managerial skills and characteristics than men do. This is presented in the literature very often, and I think needs to be addressed also. Some of the concepts that are there, very common, are a little bit too, such as the glass ceiling, is too simplistic, as women face challenges at all levels of the organization and not just at the top. We talk about the pervasive stereotypes that exist regarding women's abilities and prejudices that mean women have to do better than men and work harder if they want to succeed, if they want to proceed. May I very quickly, in 1.5 minutes, just mention some of the champions of science and technology that have had to address the issue of women in science and have succeeded in their own right. Really, to complete my presentation this afternoon, I talk about champions. Champions, of course, is male and female champions of science and technology, but I've discovered that we can use the word champion in French to indicate female or women champions of science and technology. And very briefly, I'll talk about or mention Abdus Salam, the first scientist with roots in the Islamic world to receive the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1979, Professor Ahmed Zuwail, and going back a bit for those of you interested in history, talk about Professor Musharrafa from Egypt and his student, Professor Samira Musa, who was on the road to becoming a world-class physicist before she sadly passed away in 1952. And then from Tunisia, we have a pioneer medical doctor, Tawhida bin Al-Sheikh, who was born in 1909 and passed away in the 60s, I think. I'll have to check that. But again, honored by her country for her contribution to the medical profession in Tunis. Some STI champions from the Islamic world, from the developing world, including Professor Bruce Alberts, who was for a long time the president of the US National Academy of Sciences, Professor Zuhra bin Lakhbar, Professor Khadija Youssef, Professor Rabia Hussein, amongst others. And on this slide, we have Professor Amina Goreg Fakim, the former president of Mauritius and a very eminent scientist in her own right, who again can be a role model for scientists in the developing world. I'll conclude with my last slide, skipping 2 slides as I go along to save time, and mention this, that Sustainable development can only be achieved through investments in economic, human, and environmental capital. At present, the female half of the world's human capital is underutilized the world over, not only in our countries, but even in the developed world as well. Better employment of women can increase economic growth, reduce poverty, enhance societal well-being, and help ensure sustainable development in all countries. Closing the gender gap depends on enlightened governmental policies and champions at the political level of the development enterprise and reform business practices. And thank you all very much for listening.
All right. Thank you so much indeed for you, Dr. Munif El-Zarbi, for a nice speech. And now we are going to move to the last speaker of this session, who is Ms. Shaima El-Banna. Ms. El-Banna is the head of science programs in the British Council in Egypt, and her today's speech title is Women in STEM Case Study. Ms. El-Banna manages a 55 million British pound for science program between Egypt and the United Kingdom. She has a direct experience in the development of empowering marginalized categories of the society, like women, youth, and small farmers. She also worked as a media and public relation consultant to some reputable international NGOs and agencies such as Ashoka Arab World, Save the Children, UNDP, BBC, and Arab League. Ms. Shaima, it is your turn. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me. And I'm really honored to be on this amazing panel and hearing all this information, and also participating and listening to the past 2 days. Thank you for the Women in Science Without Borders, and also for University of The Hague. Also, I am honored to be in the panel with Dr. Munif, Ms. Suzanne, Dr. Haik, Dr. Ahmed, Dr. Amal, and Mr. Karim. Today, I will be speaking about women in STEM in Egypt. This is a case study that we conducted in April 2020. It was conducted over face-to-face in-depth interviews with 40 female scientists, and also online survey for 62 female scientists. And in cooperation with the Academy for Scientific Research and Technology in Egypt, we have also conducted a paper survey in all governorates with over 420 female scientists. In this speech, I will be taking you for an overview of the research, whether it is a historical involvement of women in STEM in Egypt, overview of the current situation on educational attainment, on the labor market, and the different efforts to support women participation in STEM. Also, a snapshot of challenges and opportunities according to our random sample, and finally, the recommendations. For this case study, we aim to examine the profile and influence of women in STEM fields in Egypt, also showcase the historical involvement and contribution of women in STEM, in addition to showcase how women are currently contributing to the development of STEM research through the scope of their work. If we look at the historical involvement, and here I am a very proud Egyptian to say that we have over 100 female pioneers in STEM in ancient Egypt. For example, we have Merit Petah, the first ever named female doctor, as well as the first woman in pharmaceutical field. We have Dr. Kilopatra, first known expert in the field of gynecology, labor, and women's well-being. Also, in the modern history, we have people, female scientists like Dr. Kawkab Hifni Nasif, like Lutfiya Al-Zayyat. We have Dr. Zainab Kamil Hassan. In 1930, it was the paradigm shift in the female scientist in the modern history, where we have 13 women joining Cairo University and 8 of them joined the Faculty of Medicine. For example, we have Dr. Kawkab Hifni Nasif, the first female surgeon. We have Dr. Helena Sidaris, the first Egyptian female doctor. Currently in the education field, if we can see the numbers, we would see our numbers maybe in Egypt is higher than the international numbers in relation to women in STEM. So we have around 48% of undergraduates in the STEM fields are female. Also on the master degree level, it is also the same 48% percentage. And on the doctoral degree, it is 39% for females. And this is according to the CAPMAS 2014-2015 statistics. But if we move to the labor market, we will find this percentage is not as high as it was in the undergraduate and in the educational angle. We will find that women graduating with the STEM degree represent around 35.3% of the scientific professionals, and this is according to the CAPMAS statistics in 2017. According to the same statistics, around 26% of women are engaged in professional scientific technical activities. Only 18.4% of female STEM specialists work full-time in public sector workforce. And this decreases very much on the private sector. 21% of the surveyed women working in STEM, they prefer to work in public sector rather than private sector. And of course, this is an average number of the full STEM sectors, and it is different if we look at, it is higher in medicine, for example, and it is very less in engineering and ICT. However, there are a lot of efforts lately, starting from the 90s, to support women participation in STEM. So for example, we will find the Academy for Scientific Research and Technology are offering a lot of programs to empower women. We will find also international organizations, for example, like the L'Oreal UNESCO Women in Science Prize. We will find women in STEM support in USAID funded programs, in the British Council funded programs, in the DAAD programs. Also in the Ministry of Telecommunication and ICT, there is a big program supporting women since the new millennium, supporting women in ICT. And as Dr. Munif was saying now, around advisors in STEM, I would say we have a lot of female advisors for ICT here in Egypt. 4 challenges. While there is a very big numbers of female participants in STEM fields, there are still challenges. And these challenges that is mentioned here is again reminding you is according to the surveyed female scientists that have gone through this research. So part of the challenges facing female scientists are the long and inflexible working hours, and especially in private sector. Also poor conditions for family and parental leave, gender disparity environment that deter women from pursuing career in STEM, unequal access to opportunities, and also resourcing between rural and urban areas. We will find that percentage are higher in like Cairo, Alexandria, and main cities rather than other cities and remote cities. With all these mentioned challenges, there are also opportunities. The legal framework in Egypt, the state support are one of the opportunities that we should take advantage of for empowering female in STEM. And also based on our study, women working in STEM they feel proud of their profession. So also females are really proud of being pioneers in STEM, of working in STEM, and this personal feeling can be easily transferred to younger generation to encourage more young females to join STEM. Finally, for the recommendation, increase opportunities for more collaboration and networking, create a campaign to support and encourage women working outside of academia, create a professional development opportunity for leadership and campaign to support women leadership in STEM, create programs to engage girls and young women in STEM in rural areas, and highlight pioneer women who are not years apart from our time to encourage girls to enroll in STEM fields. As we can all see how the pandemic affected us, we can see also there is a great opportunity in that. Moving digitally, moving a lot of our work digitally will also be a good opportunity that we can take advantage of, because this will support balancing the work-life balance for female scientists. In conclusion, gender diversity is needed in STEM fields to achieve economic vibrant, innovation and social equity goals. A failure to incorporate talented women is a waste of effective human resource. There are significant number of young women engaging in STEM. Despite there are being considerable barriers, there are also considerable opportunities available to women through scholarships and policies. Egypt has a strong tradition of female empowerment. However, the number of women in STEM education does not translate to women in workforce. So there are many interventions needed at different points. At the entry level, where we should support access and awareness of STEM work. At the study level, where we should support mentorship to female scientists and support networks. And at the exit point, where we should encourage women to join workforce for both public and private sector. By this, I have concluded my presentation. I will put the link to the study in the chat box, and happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Shaima El-Banna, for your nice presentation, which is actually presented a brilliant statistical facts. Thank you very much, and well done. So we have reached to the end of the first section of this session. Now the session will be moderated by Dr. Amal Amin to receive your questions and to answer these questions. Thank you so much. The mic is yours now, Dr. Amal. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for all speakers for these nice presentations and diverse presentations, really. I think no questions, only comments. And we have 25 minutes. I have several questions for you because different topics and different subjects, every topic needs one complete lecture, maybe 1 hour or two. So that I will begin with respect to Dr. Heike. You raised a very important issue as education, but now after COVID-19, we have generally inequality all over the world between good facilities in developed countries and weak facilities in developing countries and poor countries, as most of courses are now online. So I imagine that problems with respect to education increased. So, and generally, sustainable other solutions must be suggested. So what do you think personally? And this question, I think, is for all of you.
Yeah, thank you very much for this situation. I agree. Our situations, I think, at all higher education institutions from all perspectives has changed over the last years. There are interesting developments to studies here. Now the issue of security and access is not one which is related to having transport or not, also for the case of the students I've been reporting on. So these barriers have been reduced Now there are new barriers, the questions of having technological devices,
Yes.
having money for having internet,
Yes.
living, and this is for many students, living in camps, sharing a tent with up to 12 family members, and having a quiet place to study now becomes more of a problem, and also the question of access to educational resources. So we see here that now barriers, that barriers shift, and this is still up for us to study in what regard. Now there's as here the situation is so dynamic, if this has been working on the advantage or of the disadvantage for the communities I've been looking at. I think overall globally we see a trend that especially those who are socioeconomically and structural disadvantaged, they and need structured learning environments at the university as places to study and being socially connected and exchange. That we are all worried that this will widen the gap in that regard. But this is still up for us to document and to study really the long-term effects of this situation.
Because I think it's the new inequality. I think it's the age of the new inequality, the new norms. Because now all developing countries in one page and the other developed countries on the other page. Really, all the world now on the internet, so that it differs now. If you speak about problems about transportation, now no transportation, but still we have barriers. And maybe the number increase.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think now the situation here, we really have to be carefully studying this in various kind of contexts. For example, in the teacher education programs where I teach, it's a master program. It's a master program where many women are also trying to bridge work, catering for family, and studying in a master program. Now, many of me and my colleagues, we shifted our lectures into the evening, so we see higher attendance rates among our students than we did in those courses when they had to physically move their bodies to the university. So I think it's questions on mechanism and how flexible universities are reacting. So I think there is a potential to increase access with considering university not just as a physical place, but I think we have to carefully study these effects for different groups and also for different minority groups in different contexts in that regard. I don't think there's a clear answer for this
clear answer,
as
yes.
a global perspective. Yeah.
But we will ask Dr. Munif. Dr. Munif, what do you think about the new norms, the new inequality?
Thank you.
Because it's a similar situation for science and technology.
I think the world after 2020, 2021 will not be the same. The world has changed forever. The COVID-19 pandemic has exposed many positive and many negative facts of life for all of us. I think it has, first of all, as far as we are concerned in the developing world, that our STI ecosystem is not good enough to respond to the COVID-19. The vaccines that have been developed were developed in the West and the East, and no vaccines have been developed in any of the developing world countries, notwithstanding China, but China is not a developed country anymore. Secondly, we have discovered that at times of crisis, countries tend to become unilateral in their approach and thinking. The priority is given to the national needs in terms of health, in terms of safety, in terms of medicine, and so on. And a lot of the talk of international collaboration really takes second priority to national interest. And this is why most of our countries in the Arab and the Islamic world discovered that they are short of beds, short of protective equipment for nurses and doctors, short of ventilator machines, short of many required the medical equipment to address the COVID-19 virus. So I think it's time to revisit the whole STI ecosystem in our countries so that whenever the next pandemic comes, inshallah, it will not come ever, but I think the chances are that we will be faced with new pandemics in coming years. We have to be ready. Also, our educational setup, whether at school or at university, has to really learn the lessons fast in terms of developing whatever curricular needs to be developed for online teaching and learning, hybrid systems, online, offline. We have suddenly discovered that we've been talking about developing online curricular for our schools and universities. And when the time came to put this accumulated experience to the test, the success rate in delivering education to young school students and to university students was not very satisfactory, to say the least. So I think, again, our community of education, the education community in our countries need to really think of emergency plans to upgrade its capacity to deliver education at schools and at universities. These are the two main sectors that have shown signs of weaknesses in the face of the COVID-19, the health sector and the education sector. Also, there are some other sectors that have shown some weaknesses and need to be revisited fast by our countries. The sector of food and food security. Again, at some point over the last 12 months or so, countries decided that priority in terms of providing food will be given to the national population. And even if you had money to purchase wheat or other food stuffs from the rest of the world, even with money, the food items were not available. So another sector that needs to be revisited by our scientists and our politicians, our decision makers, is the sector of food security. So I think it's all hard work from now on for everybody if we are to better manage the next epidemic or the next crisis when it comes. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I would like to transfer to Mrs. Suzanne Arif. What about my question with respect to your situation? Inequality in education, how do you manage on the land?
Yeah, I think now with COVID and also the implication of all the conflict, war on women's situation, so women now suffering more. And this is why even with COVID-19, most the responsibility, again, it came to on women's shoulders. So this is why it is time that men also, they have to take a role in the family's responsibility, social responsibility, not to put everything on women's shoulder. This is how women, every time we can find them, they are in stress. They can, because now all the families staying at home, so women, they have to take care about everything. So this is also unfair. So how this is time, how men can take a role of taking care about the family, about the social relation. And another thing I want to talk about it is the capacity of technology, because within the pandemic, we can find it is very difficult to like get the services, how to have the services. And most of the services become to be online. And most of the women, they don't have the capacity, the skill of IT to have this kind of resource. So this is why how to like service provision for health, for social, for legal, And also for women, sometimes it's important to continue her business, her work, like business, marketing, on online. So this is all, it need another kind of education of developing their skill. And most
Reforming.
yeah. And one another thing, it is how to legal reform. We need a legal reform for combating all kinds of discrimination. I saw the picture of how the environment, it is normal for men, they have all the steps, but for women, they don't have the environment. They have to challenge to find the opportunity for them. So this is why the legal reform, and especially for the combating of domestic domestic violence law. This is important, and civic education. It is most important, the civic education, because we want to have a new generation. So this is how we have to depend on the civic education, how to have the gender equality, the human rights principles. So this is really important to have a strong personality from the childhood stage. Thank you.
Thanks. Do you have comment, Mrs. Shaima or Mr. Karim?
I totally agree with Ms. Susan about what she just said, because according to the UNICEF statistics on the effect of a pandemic on gender equality, we will find that the school closure had more effect on girls studying and their access to remote learning. We have also seen the statistics that 1 of 4 adolescent girls have witnessed or been a victim of domestic violence during the lockdown. Few adolescent girls receive essential maternal health care, and many girls needed family planning. Adolescent girls also have higher rates of, for example, epidemics like HIV globally. And as Dr. Suzanne said, also women and girls tend to carry out most of the care of sick relatives, of household and child care responsibility. So then the equality will always be, it is not because the pandemic or not, but it will always be not only having an equal opportunities, but rather enabling the environment to have access to these equal opportunities.
So that we can say that the pandemic is against women now. The case of pandemic is against women, against education, against healthcare, so that we need reforming or something like that. Mr. Karim, do you have a comment?
Yes, I have several comments here. Yeah, first of all, regarding the the pandemic and its influence on the priorities in the region. This is also a crucial issue. So since gender equality, it came true that the gender equality wasn't on the top of the priorities of the decision makers or policy makers in the region. And in addition, also the youth involvement and youth activation and this kind of things. So we need to revisit our priorities in the region. We need to figure out that what we need to plan for and what we really need to reinvest our limited resources in the region for. It was very clear that our educational system wasn't ready for the pandemic. Our healthcare facilities and systems weren't ready for the pandemic. And also the social fabric wasn't really ready for the pandemic. So we need to rethink about our priorities, rethink about our resources, how to invest them properly, how to allocate them, how to manage them in a proper way. So we are dealing with the consequences of the pandemic, but we are not solving the real causes and the roots of problems and the challenges. So by this way, we will invest and will spend a hell amount of money and resources and time on in the wrong direction. So in order to overcome that, we need to rethink about our priorities. Second of all, our systems weren't agile enough. So we have long-term plans, linear projects, linear strategies. And once this linear line is cracked, so then everything is messed up. This is why we need to be more flexible. We need to think about different scenarios. We shouldn't only have a plan A and plan B, but we should have
several
B, C,
plans
D, until plan Z all the time. We should be ready for problems. We should be ready for
I have a comment on your
yes.
talk because you are concerning about science and technology. Yesterday we had lecture about science diplomacy, but it included the term colonization of science and from developed countries against the developing countries. That means even though the efforts now in the region much better, really much better than before, but I think we have strong colonization of science and knowledge now, especially after Corona, where it's very obvious now that the difference increases between developed and developing countries in technology. So about this point, what do you see the future in that in practical way?
Yeah, actually, I am not pro of the putting the wrong or the responsibility on developed countries and we ignore ourselves. It's not only the West or the developed countries are developed in science and technology, but the majority of aspects of life. Okay. And like, for instance, what we are talking about now for gender equality, for instance, it's also way advanced, or some countries are way advanced in more than our region. So it's important to cooperate. I remember there is a nice book, maybe I mentioned it quickly, called Innovation Under the Radar, written by
Could you put it in chat?
Under the Radar.
Innovation Under Radar.
It's written by a global economist called Xilan Fu. She's a Chinese professor and professor at Oxford University. She mentioned that the Chinese strategy toward innovation, and also there was another book called China's Path to Innovation. It explained how the transformation in China had been done in 1985. Like, they started by copying models from the West to China. So it's they call the imitation technologies. They imitate technologies coming from the West, transferring technologies, learning from Western experiences. And then afterwards, after 10 years, the government decided, okay, how to decide on some technologies we will do on our own. Okay, what are the appropriate technologies that we can invest in? And still some technologies that we are just importing from the West. And then after 10 years, the Chinese, so they started that the Chinese technologies were way fewer than the global or the Western technologies. And then after 10 years, it came the opposite. Like, the Chinese technologies, they controlled all the middle technologies and also lower technologies and even the high-tech technologies, more than the foreign or Western technologies. And nowadays they are dominating the global market. So it's not a shame to imitate technologies. It's not a shame to copy or to learn from Westerns or to learn from advanced countries. Build bridges and learn from their experiences. And also we share our experiences. We will not start from scratch. We're already starting from the end of some experiences or some outcomes or scientific achievements. So here, after some time, we will have very unique examples and case studies to show to the entire world. It's not a competition here. It's a cooperative work. There is a UN program now called Technology Facilitation Mechanism, where we are building a huge network across the globe for supporting STI for SDGs road mapping, where we can help all the UN member states to build their science and technology and innovation roadmaps in a cooperative way. We had done that in 5 countries, pilot countries, most of them outside the Arab region. And now we are starting 3 pilots in the Arab region for STI, for SDGs roadmaps. So it's in a cooperation with the European Union, cooperation with Japanese and Chinese governments and other developed economies across the globe. So we cannot claim here that science and technology is colonized or it is just dominated by some countries and forbidden for other countries, because we see also some examples across the globe that some new emerging economies or new emerging or in the way to be developed countries, they are totally outside the group of colonized scientific countries. So yeah, it's nothing to hinder us towards achieving our plans or ambition. And also, we shouldn't claim that someone is controlling our fate. We should do it ourselves. We should lean on our resources, our bright minds available in our region. We have the capabilities, we have the capacities, and also we have the resources. Just we want to put things in place, organize us well, manage our resources properly and wisely, invest in the right directions and right priorities, then we will achieve something. But if we are just wasting our time and wasting our financial resources on useless products or useless issues, so then we will go nowhere.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Karim. Thanks a lot for all speakers. Because of time limitations, because we have a very short closing ceremony, please stay with us. But now open your camera, Mr. Karim, Dr. Munif, Mrs. Suzanne, Mrs. Shaima, to take a photo for the speakers. And then we will transfer to closing session. Stay with us. Dr. Ahmed, please take photo and open your camera as well. Dr. Ahmed, yes, take photos.
Of you.
Dr. Shaheen is going to take the photos.
Okay.
Yes.
Done?
Done.
Yeah.
Stay with us at the closing ceremony. We will not waste your time except 10 minutes. I think 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Okay?
Thank you.
Are you ready for the closing? Okay.
We'll remain on the same link. So please, I would invite all the attendees and the panelists to keep the session on, not leave the meeting. Have a small break, maybe drink some water, then we will be online with you.
Why break? Why break, Dr. Shaheen?
Okay, if you said within 10 minutes, maybe, or?
No, we will take only 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. Sorry. It's my misunderstanding. I'm sorry.
Because several people would like to leave. Okay.
I can understand.
If you are ready.
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay.
Dr. Luqman is also ready. Is with us.
Okay. I will say something, and then Dr. Luqman.
Yeah.
At the end of the forum, I would like to thank all attendees, speakers, moderators, scientific committee, and special thanks should go to the University of Duhok, Iraq, for organizing such excellent forum in partnership of Women in Science Without Borders, which I represent, where special thanks should go to Professor Dr. Mosleh Duhoki, Professor Dr. Luqman Hadi, Professor Dr. Mizgin Hassan, Dr. Suhad Yassin, Dr. Brivan Mahdi, Dr. Iyad Vian, and all the rest of organizing committee. Also special and deep thanks should go to the IT team as the influencing part of the organizing committee, since our forum wouldn't happen without their help. Really, the team operated the forum in the best possible way. The IT team include Dr. Ahmed El Khalil and Dr. Shaheen Abdul Karim. Thanks for all. Before ending, we will have some words from Dr. Luqman, and then 2 films, and then we will open all the cameras and take the conference photo, so that don't leave. Okay, Dr. Luqman.
Yes, thank you, Prof. Amal. Finally, I mean, at the end of the forum, I want to say it was my pleasure to hold the forum in collaboration with the Women in Science Without Borders. We hope that this collaboration will be continued in future. Thanks. I would like also to thank all the keynote speakers for their valuable presentations. First, I would like to thank Prof. Maslach for his support. Maslach Duhoki, the president of the University of Duhok. Special thanks is going to Prof. Amal for her support and efforts in holding the forum in University of Duhok. Also, I would like to thank all our committee's members for their incredible job before and during the forum. Especially Dr. Suhad, Mr. Ayat, Dr. Ahmed Al Khalil, Dr. Shaheen Abdul Karim, Dr. Berivan Hadi, and all other colleagues and staffs that already contributed and in holding the conference. Thankful all of you, for all the participants, for their patience, and we hope that such events will be an opportunity for us to focus more on improving the quality of research and make, bridge with the community. And thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Luqman. Thanks for all. We will operate 2 videos. The first one for Women in Science Without Borders, please. Dr. Ahmed.
I'm with you, Dr. Amal. So
yeah. The first video for Women in Science Without Borders, only 3 minutes about our activities. Please like our Facebook page and follow it. All events there and all videos. And also we have a YouTube channel with all videos and events.
I need to share my screen then.
Okay, share.
Yes.
So
Thanks. The next film about the hawk,
yes, let
if you
me
would
just
like to visit it once.
prepare it.
You are welcome.
Inshallah.
Yeah,
In the future, inshallah.
sure.
So Dahok is the capital of the Dahok Governorate in Kurdistan region of Iraq. It's at the crossroad of three countries, which is Iraq, Turkey, and Syria. Let's make it the strategic gateway connecting Iraq and Kurdistan region with the rest of the world. So the population of the Dahok province is approximately 1.5 million and consists mostly of Kurds with an array of minority groups such as Assyrians, Chaldeans, Arabs, Armenians, Yazidis, and Mexican and other mixes. Dahok translates the two mountains which Dahok lay between them, the north and the southern part of the city. At the north end of the old town of Dahok. Dahok is considered as a very peaceful city. It's just a way of unfortunately occurs in the other parts of Iraq. We could be very, very happy to host you all here in Dahok, especially in March and April. It's the totally green city. I mean, it's a very springish city. And with a nice occasion, today is the Kurdish Traditional Clothes Day, in which people all dressing the traditional clothes, even in the official and governmental sections. Yes.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Shaheen. I am really speechless. I am sorry to miss all that beauty. Maybe next time, inshallah, it will be in person. Really.
Inshallah, we hope.
Yeah.
We hope.
We hope. At the end, I would say thank you all, hoping to see you in our upcoming events. By the way, our next forum will be in Nairobi, Kenya, in November this year, 2021. So I encourage you all to submit abstracts to join us. And before that, please follow our page on Facebook and YouTube to follow our activities and become part of our growing movement. I wouldn't say goodbye, but I would say see you. Till next meeting, inshallah, stay safe and best regards. Before leaving, please open all cameras.
Thank you, Dr. Amal, for all efforts you presented, for everything you gave and you helped in to make this conference successful as we have it now. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks. Please open all your cameras to take photo.
It's maybe almost dark with me here. So yes.
Yes, raise your hands. Do you have photos? Yeah, raise your hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. And say see you, not goodbye.
See you.
Yeah.
See you, inshallah. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
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 Bye-bye. Have you finished, Dr. Shaheen?
Yes, I'm finished.
Thanks a lot.
Yep.
Thanks a lot,
Thank
dear.
you.
Yeah, see you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good afternoon. Bye-bye.